Hello everybody, welcome to episode 5 of The Vibe. That track you just heard is the newest release from our next guest, Tocsin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, man, our pleasure. There's a drum and bass track. We're definitely going to post that to our Facebook page. Check it out. It's really well done. Nice job. Go ahead and talk about how that came about.
So, ever since I started making more drum and bass and kind of stepping away from dubstep a little bit, I've been trying to toy with different styles of drum and bass and kind of find what I really like. But that one, it kind of had some cool mid-tones that kind of sweep back and forth, and they're almost like plucks. Well, those sounds were really cool to me, so I kind of wanted to incorporate that and make something that's still a bit deeper and has more mellow vibes to it. There's not as much going on, but it's still got the nice melodic pretty elements to it and stuff. And that's just an idea that kind of just kept going, and I actually wrote the song in 2 days.
Really?
And
wow.
then after that it was the base of the song, and then after that it was just going through and doing all the housekeeping and nitpicky stuff.
Sure.
It didn't all sound good, but the idea was there.
Right on.
So
right on. Well, it was a well done track.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice job. Let's go back to where it all began. What was your first experience like with EDM? How did you get into the scene?
So I first got into it. A friend in high school had showed me what dubstep was, and that was back 2009, 2010. So it was just coming up around here at all, and then I just kept digging from what he had showed me, and I remember sitting in school downloading dubstep songs on the computers at school and stuff. I really liked the music, and then it wasn't until 2013 when my friend John Dissonance, he moved in with me in this house, and he had a little DJ controller, and I was like, that's really cool, can you teach me that? And he did. And then from there we had moved out of that house, so I had to get my own equipment and stuff. And for a while I had this little rinky-dink, your most base level Pioneer mixer that you could have, and I used to go put all my stuff in a backpack and skateboard to different house parties I could go DJ at and stuff. Yeah, that was a wild time, because I was just going literally wherever I could to go play. And from there I was able to have the money at the time to invest more heavily into equipment so I could get rid of my little tiny DJ board. And I was looking, and CDJs are the top of the line, the industry standard, what all the big guys use. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna take another mid-level step from that. I'm just gonna go full on for the best of the best. And I did. But the problem with that was when I got them, I didn't know what I was doing with them, because it's a lot different than mixing with a controller if you don't have somebody to show you, where everything is, because it's just well,
very different.
yeah. So I learned those by just sitting down with them and being like, what does this button do? What does this button do? And then, came to realize it's all essentially the same, just everything is laid out in front of you. And from there, I ended up teaching a bunch of other people later on down the road about how to use those, and anybody who had a controller that knew what they were doing, they could just come to me and I would teach them how to run the CDJs, so that they could go into any show that just has them there, and you can just walk up with your USB, plug your headphones in, and you go. You don't have to worry about carrying anything in a backpack or anything like that.
Right.
But yeah, from there, I ended up meeting more people around town who were like-minded and wanted to do stuff with music, and I ended up running into my friend Chris Bitts at a house party that I had just showed up to play. The person throwing the party got a hold of both of us and we're like, yeah, come DJ at this house party. And we both show up there at the exact same time with all of our stuff.
No way.
And I had actually went to high school with Chris, and at the time didn't know he was going to get into this music or whatever and do any of that. So I hadn't seen him for like 2 years or so, and we both just show up to this house party like, I'm here to DJ, and he's like, wait, you're here to DJ? I'm here to DJ. And then it ended up being that we weren't even allowed to DJ there. The whole party was getting shut down, it got too wild and stuff. Everybody was getting kicked out. And so we ended up just going back to his house and hanging out and both setting our stuff up. And a couple months later, I ended up needing a place to live and moved in with him. And then we had started, really working off of each other to get a little better. And then in that house, we were throwing our own parties because we didn't know where else to go, what else to do with it. And then it was one day he had just decided he was going to go to a bunch of bars around town and ask around where he could DJ at. And it ended up being the Log Cabin was the one that bit on that one. So we went and did like a one-off show there. Didn't do anything there for a while. And then we were also doing like warehouse parties. And we had this really cool spot that was on Chestnut Street. It was really cool because it was on a dead-end street. And so like the police never had any reason to just patrol up and down the street unless they were called there.
Yeah.
And it was all fenced in, like with like big privacy fences. The door, when you actually get behind the fence, is another like 50 yards past the entrance of the fence. So if any of like the guys running the doors saw the cops, they just closed up the fence. We closed the big doors to the warehouse.
That's prime time.
You coming down that street, unless you knew it was exactly that spot, you would have thought it was the place across the street, because the place across the street always had a bunch of cars in the parking lot and stuff.
Perfect. Sounds like a perfect
spot.
So
yeah, it was a great time, and there wasn't a lot going on in the underground scene at the time, other than like the parties that we were throwing, and there was some other people who were doing their own things and stuff. We were packing that in every weekend for a while. That place ended up getting sold, and there was these people renting it who, it was like an auto shop or something like that. Yeah, they were renting it, and then at night all the cars were out behind the fence in the lot, and then they'd rent it out to us for a couple $100 for the night.
And who made that connection with the owners there?
Chris actually got that connection. He was good friends with Zach Quist, and he was actually really influential in like me and Chris starting to get up, because he was good friends with Chris. He goes and does his own music stuff, so he had a lot of knowledge about how to get yourself going. He was part of the reason, Chris went and got in the bars and all that stuff. Is he had Zach in his ear, like, you can do this, you got it.
Wow, okay. And
then it was through somebody he knew that got us that warehouse. And he was kind of our facilitator there, whereas when we got in there, he was like the one running the show, so that we could worry about the music and not have to worry about running the security team or any of that stuff.
Right. Wow, sounds like a perfect situation.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And it was actually really sad when that place
I bet
ended, because that's a one of a kind thing. It had all the good things you would be looking for in a warehouse spot like that. Which there was a couple other places that like popped up, like the Death House was a thing for a while, if you've ever heard of that. That was just on kind of like a main street area. The cops were always around there all the time, and then they had problems with not being able to control people and that.
Right.
And that's not a thing anymore, but that place was really cool because in the back of the space, there was a big half pipe with like a whole like bowl turn, like half a skateboarding bowl just in the back of that. So like people, obviously when it get packed, you can't have people skateboarding there,
right.
but like if it's like half full or so, you still have people skateboarding awesome. On the ramps and stuff while you're playing music. Yeah, that was another one of those like one of a kind places. You're not gonna find another small warehouse like that with a half bowl. The entrance of that place, there was like a little cutout with like an arch that goes over that you like walk through. You walk right into the bowl when you get in there. Mm-hmm. There was a couple of places that you just kind of wish never ended. Yeah. Just because they were so cool in their own way. Right.
It really does seem like the perfect situation to throw that type of party. And I've dabbled into a little bit of the current scene, and it's well regulated, and it's a safe space too. You know what I mean? Like it's not, you don't feel sketched out. Like you just feel like it's really welcome, and everyone's there to just have a good time.
Right. Yeah, and like when we were running those Chestnut shows and stuff, the groups of people that would come to that were good groups of people because we did all of it by word of mouth. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We weren't, going and making Facebook events and stuff for it. We'd tell our friends who would tell their friends, and we'd end up with a good group of people. And in that time, there was a lot of people who would put up parties on Facebook and stuff, and you'd end up getting a bunch of random people you don't really want at this party to be there. Yeah, so it was like the good core group of people who were actually there. They loved this kind of music, and they were in the right place for them. It was really cool because you're never gonna get that again, and
you feel fortunate to be a part of that.
Like those are some memories I'm gonna take with me the rest of my life. I'll never forget the nights we had in that one spot.
Yeah. I feel like I missed out by the way you describe it. Like I wish I would have been there. This just seemed like the place to be, at least in the underground scene. That's really cool. It seems like you were heavily a part of the scene, kind of growing up through that, and you kind of saw its evolution in that aspect.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I kind of want to go back to when you first started DJing. What was your identity? Because it changed recently, but how did you start out? What were you labeled as?
Well, I used to be called Fry Bread Power, and that all started when I was living with John, and he had already, established himself with this is the name I'm going with, and this and that. And we were just posting our mixes on SoundCloud and stuff. Well, I didn't have any name to put my mixes under. And Fry Bread Power was already my name on like Instagram and my other social medias and stuff, so I just made my SoundCloud with that name, and it just kind of became one of those things where I didn't think of anything better to change it to, so I just ran with it. And then in the past couple years, it's honestly, to me, almost been like a joke I let go too far. Okay. Because it wasn't really something that I enjoyed, like the name itself. Okay. If I would have went back and started over, I would not have picked that name. I mean,
where does that name come from? Like, how did that originate?
Well, fry bread is a Native American fried bread that it's deep fried, and then the most popular thing to make on it is Indian tacos, where you put taco stuff on top of this big piece of fried bread. And Fry Bread Power came from, there's this movie Smoke Signals, and it's about these two Indians that go on this adventure and stuff. And there's that one point of the movie that the guy's telling his friend, like, you don't look like an Indian, you don't act like this, that, and the other. And then he comes out the next scene with his hair blowing in the wind and the shirt that says Fry Bread Power on it. And then that just became my name on social medias. And then, I just ran with the name. Okay. But
do you have any affiliation with like the Indian heritage? Or?
Yeah, I'm half Indian myself.
You're half Indian? Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha. I'm a quarter Navajo and a quarter Ottawa.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's really cool. I didn't know. That's cool we uncovered that. I never would have made that correlation. Like, I didn't realize Fry Bread was Indian relation. I didn't know you had that heritage. So
yeah, there's actually a couple of guys from Traverse City where the tribe I belong to is based around. they've come down from Traverse City to see me play at the Intersection and stuff before, and for other shows and stuff. But it was really cool when I met them, because they like singled me out in the crowd, and they were like, "You're Freiburg Power," and then they like told me who they were, and like asked me what tribe I was from, and we ended up being from the same one, and It was like
nice. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome though. Small world, and you never know who you're gonna meet, and that's a crazy connection to make like that, to be a part of the same tribe. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Especially at an event like that. So how did Tocsin become like that name that you were going for?
Well, Tocsin, that was something I contemplated for a long time. Ever since I started, getting like decent shows and at actual like legitimate venues and stuff like that, I didn't really want to push the Freiburg Power name that much, because it just seemed cheesy to me.
Okay, yeah.
But I never had a reason to change it, because rebranding a whole brand it's a hard thing to do once you got any kind of fan base established or anything. Mm-hmm. But what really pushed me was that I was playing dubstep for so long as Freiburg, and I just got burnt out of it. I wasn't enjoying it the same way I used to and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I had been listening to drum and bass so much, and I was enjoying it a lot more so than I was enjoying dubstep. And I started like making dubstep. I couldn't come up with ideas for good dubstep songs, but anything like I could think of that sounded good to me started being drum and bass. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of what pushed me to make the change, because not only was I just changing my name, I was going to change the whole style of music I was going with. And the first time I came across drum and bass was back in Electric Forest in 2014, when I saw Andy C before Excision.
Yeah.
And just stumbled into it. And yeah, I ran back to my camp and then came back, and I was early for Excision, so I was like, all right, who's Andy C? And just saw a sea of people getting down to drum and bass, and I was like, what is this? And so after that, I dug a bit and, found artists I liked and stuff. And it was just kind of something I enjoyed listening to, and I knew, it wasn't a genre that's, very popular around here. Mm-hmm. Through those times that everybody wanted to hear dubstep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just now, drum and bass is starting to come up in America, at least.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what changed me to push to Tocsin, was just I'm changing my entire style of music. It's a whole different vibe, and I've honestly been enjoying it a lot more personally than I was enjoying Freiburg, a year ago.
And that's the important thing, right? Like, that's a huge risk to take, and I commend you for that, because you put yourself and your personal feelings first, because if you're not enjoying what you're doing, then why are you even doing it?
Exactly.
So for you to take that jump and be like, this is a huge risk, but I'm going to do it for me and not for anybody else, I think that's the important thing, for sure.
Yeah, and like drum and bass in general, it's around here in Grand Rapids, you have your older guys who have been, in the drum and bass game for years and years and years. They kind of, do their own underground things and stuff, but, they're not pushing to try and bring it to all the newer kids. And,
right.
And I mean, they're all really good guys, and, they've all, kind of taken me in as, one of their own with the drum and bass scene.
Who would you say these individuals are?
Some of them are like Psylocke. He's with me on the Noiser show. He's been around a really long time, and he makes incredible music, and he's booked me on one of his like underground semi-private party things. Sure. It's one of those you kind of got to know somebody thing to go do. Mm-hmm. And like Randy Visser's another one. He's a really nice guy who's been around for a long time, and he booked me at Mulligan's a couple years ago. He was doing shows in the back room there, and booked me while I was playing dubstep as Freiburg. Okay. And so through that I met him, and I still every now and then, get to see them out and about and do stuff. But like I was saying, they're not, pushing as actively, like I am to try, spread it to as many ears as I can possibly find.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And in a way, that's the best way to get people to jump onto a new genre that they might not want, is to, go and play it in front of them. Mm-hmm. And like, that was how I kind of, checked the waters when I was still Frybred. I would, try and play drum and bass when I could. Mm-hmm. And in the early times, it would just clear floors. Like, people would be loving the dubstep I'm playing and be getting down, and then I'd try and sneak some drum and bass in there, and they'd all go to the bar and go smoke and do all. And I was like, all right, I'll go back. And then slowly over time, the more and more I keep trying to push it here and there, I'd lose less and less of the crowd, and it's finally getting to a point where when I do play drum and bass, I don't completely lose everybody. I can see, a core amount of the crowd still thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah.
And that's been incredible, starting a completely different genre of music for me and seeing it well received. Mm-hmm. Like, I kind of assumed when I started playing shows that were like full drum and bass sets and stuff that I would, lose people and they would just be disinterested until I played enough of it in front of them to finally start enjoying it. Mm-hmm. But there's been quite a few times where, somebody's playing heavy dubstep directly before me, and then I come up and start playing drum and bass, and the people are just like, okay, I like it.
Yeah, it's different, right? It's something different. Yeah, and it's a scary thing. I can only imagine you kind of got to conduct your own social experiment in the sense of pushing that new sound and seeing it collectively become something that people accept. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, recently there's been, a lot of big DJs on Twitter and stuff that have been saying, 2020 drum and bass is coming. Yeah. and it's just crazy to think how behind the curve America in general is for drum and bass, because if you go see anything about it over in Europe, it is massive over there.
Yeah.
And I was actually talking to it the last time Noisia was here with one of the guys from there, and he was saying he doesn't understand what it is about drum and bass, but America is the hardest place in the world to play drum and bass, just because for some reason it's not well received here. And yeah, we were talking about that for a minute about how we wish it was better here, because I see lineup after lineup overseas that I would love to go see, but it's just not possible. And that's really the only way to get it here, is to get more people into it on the ground level, as far as like making your friends listen to it, and like, hey, let's go see this new guy or this different genre that's not just the same headbanging dubstep, and whether it be drum and bass or deep dubstep or just something different that's not heavy headbanging dubstep,
right?
Because there's a lot of newer people that come around that's what they hear for the first time, and that's what they get into, which is great. That's fine, but they don't really take the time to branch out to other genres under the EDM umbrella.
Right. I would say in my personal experience, the hardcore dubstep fans are just all in, and nothing else really matters, and they get offended when other artists try and bring in, it's like, no, I want to hear dubstep. You got to be open. Like, it's if it's not your scene, by all means, just go listen to something else. But if you're at maybe a festival and that's an act that's playing, that why not give it a shot? Right? Well, you never know.
Even myself included, I was one of those hardcore dubstep kids for a while.
Passion. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just passion. But you got to remember, you can't really spread bad vibes on a different genre just because you don't like it. It's just, there's no use for that.
But just listening to it yourself, if that's all you're listening to, you're gonna burn yourself out of it. That's how I stopped enjoying playing dubstep all the time is just because I gave myself too much of it to where it just burnt myself out, and that's one thing that I've made sure to do recently was, be listening to different kinds of music, make sure I'm not listening to the same style of music over and over, because no matter what kind of music it is, you're gonna start losing interest in it if it's all you're listening to.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think it is important to gather in all aspects, because you can take little bits and pieces from certain songs and use that as inspiration into
exactly. That's actually a big way of how I think of new ideas for like drum patterns and drum and bass songs is you can, say I'm listening to like a rock song and I'm listening to the drum pattern of it. Well, the drummer himself might do some weird little fill or something that you might hear and like, and I think, how could I possibly incorporate that into drum and bass drums to make it sound good, because a lot of like the drum work in drum and bass is you have your basic kick, snare, hi-hat combination, but it's filling all the gaps between that with other random percussive rhythms and patterns and stuff. And I might hear in something that's, completely unrelated to any kind of electronic music, some kind of drum pattern that I like, that, that's a cool way to fill that space, and go try it. And it's a huge inspiration like that is listening to other kinds of music. Right,
and I think that's what makes EDM great, is you can take different aspects from the possibilities are endless, right? Like, you can take stuff from anywhere. You're not limited to instruments. You have an entire database of just sounds and samples, and you can manipulate those into whatever you want.
Oh yeah, I mean, in today's day and age, anybody with a decent computer, you can have anything you want at the tip of your fingers. And there's no set of rules to kind of tell you have to make it this way. There are, kind of guidelines to follow as far as like music theory and structure and all that. Like, but there's nothing that's saying you have to use this sound or you have to make this sound this way. It's all to the producer's preference and what works well together. And a lot of the best electronic songs that I hear are mashups of different sounds that, I wouldn't think would work well together, and actually they work perfectly together. And it's kind of the things that catch me off guard like that really like spark my interest. And it's really good if you can surprise me with a song like that. And that's what's going to make it stick in my mind and remember what that is, or go deeper into that artist and see what else they make that might be cool too.
I find, at shows and festivals that I go to, there's one or two tracks that I just cannot get out of my head. You know what I mean? Like, they just get stuck, and a lot of the time they're unreleased. Like, I haven't heard them, and then they get released and you're just like, yes, that's the song.
That is one of my favorite feelings.
Right? Yeah, it's a great feeling. But there's I think there is a science to it. You know what I mean? In finding the right tunes, and it varies person to person, obviously, as well. But to have that effect on people, I think that's the big thing, is to have them walk away from your set and be like, man, that was a fucking either dope set, or there was one track in there that I just can't get out of my fucking head. Right?
Exactly.
So I kind of want to touch on your career, because 2019 seemed like a pretty big year for you. You were playing some pretty big shows, and we've kind of been tiptoeing around this Noisia show that you have coming up, which is, in my opinion, like probably really, really big for you, because this is their farewell tour.
Yeah.
So to be a part of that, I'm sure is really special.
Yeah, Noisia, they came here. It's three guys. They only sent one of them for the DJ set that they played at the end of 2018. But that when they came here the last time, they came and played Elevation, and that was their only non-festival North America date. Every other date that they were playing in North America at that time was some kind of big festival. And so that was really special, because like how I was saying, drum and bass is so huge in Europe, you're never going to see Noisia in such a small, intimate setting. So you could tell when he was up on stage DJing that he was genuinely having a good time. And a lot of big producers will use times like that to try out new things that they want to try, songs they wouldn't normally throw together in front of a massive crowd because they want it to be clean and polished or whatever.
Right, yeah.
And that's incredible that they're coming back again for their farewell tour to such a small setting.
Right.
Because they've been going as Noisia for 20 years now, and they've played the biggest electronic shows there are out there.
Right.
And they've been so influential to so many big producers out there, and for them to come back to our hometown after they came the first time, and the show didn't even sell out. It was maybe 3/4 full, but for them to after that want to come back again for their last tour ever is just insane to me.
Yeah.
And for me to have the opportunity to not only open for them once, but again when they come back,
wow.
is it's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine. You must be pretty excited.
Yeah.
I'm sure the nerves are going right now, leading up to that date. But I'm sure you're gonna kill it. And where is that? Is that at Elevation, or is that gonna be in the intersection?
It's at Elevation.
Elevation,
again.
okay.
Yeah. So I mean, Elevation is such a perfect setting for any kind of electronic music down there. It's got the basement vibe that almost gives you the same kind of vibes that the warehouse would. It's a dark, hard concrete wall place that is perfect for the almost industrialized sounds of electronic music.
Yeah, my personal favorite venue. I love Elevation. The
Yeah.
fact that even exists, I don't know how the idea came about and what took so long for that to become a thing, but man, it works, and it seems like it's perfect area for that type of music and kind of that underground sound.
Exactly, and that I mean, Elevation was the perfect venue for us to have added to the intersection, because when Elevation went in, there was such a gap between the Stash or the Big Room. There was so many shows that would sell out the Stash but wouldn't come close to selling out the Big Room, and it was perfect. They got that nice mid-level room down there, and like the whole setup where you have the elevated parts on the sides.
Yeah.
It's great for me, who's someone who's not very tall.
Yeah,
I can kind of hang out on the sides and still see what's going on the stage.
Pretty much anywhere
and,
there, man. Like seriously,
there's not a bad spot in that place.
Right, for real. Such a dope location.
Yeah, it's easily my favorite place to play, and the intersection in general. I mean, this will be the 14th time I've played there, or something like that.
Okay. Have you hit all the stages, or have you just been? Yeah, you played them all.
Except for the Mint, I haven't played the Mint.
Okay, right, which is understandable. Not many shows are played there, but that's awesome. So yeah, you kind of made a name for yourself there.
Yeah, and I was actually really lucky. The first time I tried to get a show there was back in 2015. I just got a message from one of my friends one day that said, "Hey, Chad's looking for DJs to open for Manic Focus. Go email him right now." And
Chad is one of the head talent promoters for the intersection.
Yeah, he's And so I emailed Chad a mix, and had never had any conversation with him, didn't know who he was at the time, and sent him a mix, and he almost instantly replied to me and was like, "All right, we'll let you know." And then 15-20 minutes later, I get tagged in a post on Facebook that he put the flyer up that had my name on it, and I was shocked at the time.
What a feeling, I'm sure.
When I first sent that email, I had no confidence that I was actually going to land that show, because that was right as I was starting to, figure out how to play a dive bar around town. And, the intersection is the place to be in town, and there's just no way I thought I was going to land that. And then, instantly he put the flyer up, and I probably sat there and stared at it for an hour straight, just like, that's actually my name on there. And oh man, from there, I got to know Chad, and he's he's put me on so much stuff now, and the first time I played the Stash, I think it was St. Patrick's Day of 2016 for Spag Hetty.
Oh.
And for that one, he gave me the direct support slot, so I was right before the headliner.
Okay.
And when I went up on stage, that's still in my top 3 of shows I've ever played.
Yeah.
Because I went up there and it was already packed to the gills in there. At least it seemed like it to me.
No, I'm sure it was.
And,
Spag Hetty and the Stash, I'm sure it was close to selling out, if not sold out.
Yeah, well, at that time, not a lot of people knew who he was and
Okay.
stuff, but it was St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, right. Yeah, that makes it tough, too.
And so I get up on stage, the crowd's already wild,
Yeah.
and then, it was one of the most fun sets I've ever played, just because the energy of the crowd and me feeding off of each other in that one is it. I mean, I still have videos that I'll go back and watch when I'm having a bad day. I'm like, oh, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
That was my first time in the Stash, and still probably the craziest show I've ever played.
Really?
And I played a bunch of other shows, and they put me on a couple of bass countries there when I played with Dissonance in the Stash.
Okay.
And that was another one that's like up there with some of my favorite sets, just because since he's the one that taught me how to DJ, we feed off of each other really well.
Yeah.
And a lot of times going back to back with a DJ, unless you really know like how they mix, it's hard to get in a groove with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And actually be able to bounce ideas off of each other and flow with each other instead of kind of working against each other. And since he's the one that taught me how to DJ, we played countless shows together, playing dubstep together. I forgot where I was going with that.
Kind of was just like a full circle moment, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like everything kind of came to fruition, and I'm sure to have your mentor there alongside of you made it like that much more easier to kind of do your own thing and not really think about everything else that goes into it, like nerves and things like that. To have someone up there with you that knows you that well.
Right, yeah, and we don't, when we're up there DJing together, we don't really have to tell each other what the next one's gonna do. We just kind of feel it out, and when you just know,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
You guys kind of like surprise each other, like I'm about to fucking blow his mind with this shit, like
yeah,
that type of stuff.
that's exactly how it is.
Yeah.
If we're talking to each other on stage, most of the time it's something like that,
Yeah.
rather than like, hey, this is what I'm gonna do. It's more like you're not ready for this.
Yeah,
one.
right. It was like, oh shit. Oh, that's dope. That seems like it'd be something really cool to experience for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually got to play with him out at Grid Life. Not this year, but last year.
Is that in Detroit?
No, that's at Gingerman Raceway in South Haven.
Oh, okay.
Grid Life, they do a couple of shows or a couple of festivals like across the country. They do the one in South Haven, one in Atlanta, and I think they have one in Colorado now.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a full-on festival at a racetrack that they have cars drifting and doing like time attacks and stuff during the day, and all kinds of car shows and stuff, and then music at night. And I've gotten to play there 3 times now, and the one year me and Dissonance went, they had a silent disco for like after the main stage. So like you had the main stage, and in the back of that area was the silent disco. Well, the silent disco didn't start until the main stage closed down, so that they could still push music into later times without messing with any noise ordinances or anything.
Right, yeah, yep.
And then still get people to kind of funnel into the silent disco while the crowd's still there at the main stage. And for that year there, they had a school bus. These guys from Chicago have this bus named called the Good Bus. Well, that was the entire silent disco. Like they have like a big bar counter inside the bus, and there was two DJ setups in there, and you're standing inside the bus DJing on a counter, looking out the windows of the bus at the whole crowd of the silent disco. So,
what an experience! That sounds dope.
Yeah, that was wild.
Mm-hmm.
On the other channel as us was I don't know if you know who Low Key was.
I'm not familiar.
They make more like groovy music and stuff.
Okay.
Well, they played the main stage at Grid Life that year,
okay.
and then they were coming to do like a surprise DJ set at the silent disco.
Mm-hmm.
And so we expected, you know, everybody's going to be on that channel. Nobody's going to
right,
yeah. So I kind of went in with that expectation,
yeah.
and it was actually insane to see how many people were listening to us over them. But at the same time, we were playing heavy dubstep, and
two different sounds. Sounds like you're pretty versed, you know, to play major festivals and venues like the Intersection. It sounds like your come up was kind of just that, going into the main stage and just kind of growing from there. You never really had to build you were in the underground scene, but you know, to get your big break, it was kind of just like main stage.
Well, yeah, at the Intersection it was kind of like that, but there's a lot more than that as far as trying to branch out from your hometown. Like there's so many locals I see who figure out very quickly how to get out of just Grand Rapids and, you know, go out to these other cities and stuff. And yeah, that's one thing I had kind of struggled with a little bit, was getting away from Grand Rapids. And then probably my favorite place to play outside of Grand Rapids is in Muskegon for I don't know if you know who Jay Ruggiero is. Him and John Gray, they run Pocket Sand Productions out there. They throw a show called Birthday. And at first thought, you wouldn't think Muskegon is going to be like huge electronic music scene, but the people out in Muskegon go harder than anyone I've ever seen. It's insane out there. Like, and I remember the first time I played out there, they gave me one of the best slots of the night, and it was very well over capacity in this bar. And it was another one of those like little dive bars out in the middle of nowhere, but they brought massive sound systems into and just packed it to the gills. Yeah, those guys have been incredible throughout the way. Like they've booked me countless times out there, and I've helped, you know, bring a couple other people out to them, you know, like, hey, if you're looking for somebody new to book this guy. And it kind of helps, you know, someone else who might not know him, or, you know, go play this wild show out in Muskegon. And then, you know, they're all really good guys out there, and they still do those all the time, and they're at this new place, the Platinum Room, but they do a good job of all the stuff they make from their shows, they reinvest back into the shows. So every single time I go out there, Jay is always like, hey, I got this thing and this thing and this thing, check this out. Or we brought more sound, it's way louder than the last time, is what he tells me every time. He gives
the people what they want, right?
Exactly,
yeah. That's what it's all about.
And it's great for the Muskegon crowd out there, because they don't have to drive an hour to come see a show in Grand Rapids then, you know. They might only do them, you know, once a month or whatever, but, you know, this once a month they don't have to drive to the Intersection and, you know, they can stay in their hometown and have a wild show.
Yeah. Because when I think Muskegon, I can't really think of any venues that bring in big name artists. You know, a lot of it is Grand Rapids, Detroit for the majority.
Yeah, I mean, Jay out there, he gets like good like mid-level artists and stuff to bring, and he's had like Crowell out there, Tengraphs, Graham Greene, Lord Swanix, so like some decent names out there. Yeah. And just for something that they built themselves. It literally started off as someone's birthday party. That's how it got named Birthday, and then it just grew from there. Like, hey, let's throw more of these, then
there's a market for it, right?
Yeah,
there's a market for it. And I mean, you've been invested, it sounds like, in the EDM scene for a while. Would you say that that's the case? Is that there's more and more people receptive to this sound and this scene?
Yeah, there's I mean, constantly more and more people coming into it. which is great for you know, trying to branch out and stuff. out there they go wild for dubstep, but it's slowly coming up with other genres. I mean, there's always been your house group and stuff, and like for the guys out there, there's not a whole lot going on out there, but the house scene I've seen grown a bit in recent times. Zach Bletz did a great time, booking Bassbin for years. And it's good to, have something they can go to every single week.
Right.
It's the house heads know, every Monday they can go to Bassbin and, have a great time.
Yep.
And it's the same thing for like dubstep at Bass Elements. They book other stuff too, but majority of the time there's heavy dubstep being played there, and that's plays into one of the times that I thought that the drum and bass wasn't going to be well received, and it actually brought more people to the floor. Was one of the last times I played out at Bass Elements. I forget who it was now, but they were playing heavy dubstep right before me, and I was like, these people are loving this now. Let's see how they feel in 5 minutes when I go on.
Yeah.
And it was crazy to see, more people come to the floor, and it's been well received, and it's all growing. It's constantly growing.
It seems like there's a new subgenre even, every year, right? Like,
yeah.
It's hard to keep track of all the different sounds, but as a fan, what more could you ask for than people to push the boundaries? And I think that's a big part of it, and something that you're going through right now is pushing the boundaries and not just sticking with one thing. I have a lot of respect for that.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, you're not going to get it to grow unless you help it grow. And I want to see, the artists that I want to see be able to come here. And that's not going to happen if, there's no market for it. And I can see it slowly gaining traction. And, I can see more and more people will eventually jump on the wagon and we'll get to go somewhere. Yeah. But it's a slow process at times, just kind of sitting here like, I can see where it's going. Let's just get there.
Right, yeah. Patience, I'm sure it'll pay off for you.
Oh,
for sure. Yeah.
I hope so.
It will. 2019, or 2020, like a lot of the artists are saying, it could be the year of drum and bass. To close out, I kind of want to just let you, promote what's coming up on your horizon in the year 2020 here.
Yeah, on the 25th, I have Noisia at Elevation that I'm selling $17 tickets for. Okay. And then the next week after that is Moody Good at Elevation again.
Is he drum and bass, or is that?
No, Moody Good, he does a few different things. Okay. He started it as 16-bit like years ago, making like the old like original dubstep stuff. And he goes from any kind of like really chilled melodic stuff to like some heavy dubstep. Okay. So that should be a good time. That's actually the Bass Country pre-party. So it's the day before Bass Country at Elevation. For that one's only $10.
Okay. And so anything else?
No, that just those two for right now.
Those two for right now? Okay. Yeah. Right on. Sweet. What about music-wise? Anything in the works that?
I have a bunch of music that I'm sitting on right now. It's kind of like I was telling you for the other song, Breathe, that I can make a song quickly and then I'll sit on it for forever and sit there and tweak things and, try and get it to a point where I'm happy with, everybody hearing this. Right. There's quite a few things I'm sitting on that I'm just waiting for that last little, all right, this is what sets it to where it's ready.
Are you thinking like EP or just a bunch of singles?
I haven't really decided. There's pros and cons to each. But, I'll probably do a couple of singles with some of the things I'm sitting on, and then hopefully get working on, an EP for, something better. Okay. It's something that's gonna be the cream of the crop of what I have. Right.
Yeah. You think you're gonna when you know.
Yeah.
When you get
exactly.
to that point, right? Yeah. Okay. I respect that for sure. We'll just leave it at that. But anyways, Tocsin, thank you so much. This was a great interview. I think probably our longest yet. We had a lot to talk about, and good luck with your future endeavors, and can't wait to hear this unreleased music that you're sending on. So.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Of course. Our pleasure, man.